Hey everyone, Ben here from Stellar Work. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to talk with Sonya Siderova about flow. I was really looking forward to this recording as I can highly recommend using flow metrics to optimize organizations. And NAVE is probably the best tool to aggregate the data. I also use flow metrics when doing agile transitions with my clients, so I hope you're going to enjoy this one as much as I enjoyed recording it. Let's go. Hey Sonya, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, happy to have me here. Thanks.
How are you doing?
Good. It's good to see you. It's been some time.
Awesome. I really wanted to have you here on the podcast because I felt like you're some sort of the queen of dashboards. It almost feels to me. So you've been doing for quite some time with NAVE now. Can you give us a brief introduction of who you are and what you're doing?
Of course. My name is Sonja. I'm the founder and CEO at NAVE. We build Kanban Analytics. It's an analytics suite that helps teams to improve their workflows, to really unhide what's going on in their day-to-day processes and start optimizing them. The ultimate goal really is to help teams start making reliable data-driven decisions in order for them to figure out what's the next logical step for them to deliver better products faster.
Awesome. I'm really curious because although data is very important in the Kanban world and Agile is considered at least by most of the people as an Agile methodology out there, I'm really wondering, so you're doing this for quite some time now, and you're not really affiliated with the Agile movement. You're pretty much dig into data and help people and organizations make data-driven decisions while everyone else was riding the cuddly Agile wave. What was your intentions behind it? How did you come up with this?
Well, what I strongly believe is that people have problems that have to be solved. NAVE is a customer-centric company, and everything that we're doing is coming from our customers. It's coming from the feedback that our people give us. And I have to tell you, after more than 6 years doing this now, I'm just amazed about how the market is filled in with labels and processes and frameworks and methods and all of that stuff. But what our people need, what the people who are in the trenches need, are solutions. And very often, the most successful teams that we work with, they don't follow anything by the book. They just look into their own issues, their own problems, and they start pulling solutions and suggestions from different opinions and different work of knowledge, which is amazing. And that's why I'm so excited about having the tool and helping all of these teams to really get better and make reliable decisions, because it's not about having something that you follow step by step. That's certainly a great starting point. Like if you're not doing anything and your processes are all over the place and you're not really able to actually come up with the reliable outcomes, the reliable business outcomes, and the results that you're after, and certainly starting from somewhere and following up something by the book would be a great way to go forward. But after that, you have to start figuring out, okay, what is it that's working and what is it that doesn't work in our own context. So that's the reason why we're not affiliating, certainly with the Agile movement. We are trying to help Agile teams because our tool, in order to make sense to you, there must be some sort of a mindset, some sort of a need for improvement. There must be that willingness to really take things as they are and move them to the next level. So that's probably why Agile teams are most attracted in what we're doing. But apart from that, it's all about, let's look into what you have now, and then let's figure out where the problem is so that we can tackle that specific problem. And from there, you understand what's the next logical step for you. Because let me tell you, your processes will always be broken. It doesn't matter what you're doing. Once you solve something, you will start figuring out the next potential issue. The bottleneck will always be there. It's just going to move from one place to another. As your teams change, as your business change, as your customers change, and the market changes, everything will be affecting your performance and your productivity and the way you do what you do. So that's the main reason why we provide that opportunity to really unhide all of these inefficiencies, so that you know at any one time what's the most important thing you have to focus on in order to move the needle.
That is really interesting. And I can totally imagine this on a delivery side of the organization when we talk about, let's say, teams or teams of teams that work together to deliver a service or a product. But I was really wondering if shouldn't we see this on a broader scale, starting from something like a strategy or product management, which are often decoupled from the teams that actually do the work afterwards. What is your take on that? Like, how can we connect those two sides? Because they're often, let's say, if you're connecting NAVE to an Atlassian tool, most of the time the development teams would use that. But how would you approach a transition on a broader scale when you're also looking at, let's say, product management or a C-level management that is coming up with strategies?
So first of all, our tool on its core is a process optimization tool.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So as long as you have a process, and as long as there is a start of that process and an end of that process, and an idea that goes through it and is delivered to someone, then you will be able to benefit from what we're doing. Now, on a high level, there are still processes and there are still projects, initiatives on a high level that still move through these processes. Yes, you then take them, then you untangle the whole thing, you create the stories, the epics, the features, and all of that, and then they go through to the teams. But still, on that top level, you still have a workflow, you still have a value stream and an end-to-end process. So we have different options that we provide in order to support that perspective. Our tool comes with the so-called executive dashboard, which is a combination of all the information that comes from the team's dashboard. And also you can now actually have this high-level understanding of, if you take one initiative, how does that initiative actually move through the entire process, keeping in mind that there are, let's say, probably many teams that are working on delivering that specific initiative. So that's how we're handling this. The executive dashboard that we provide have two main purposes. One is understanding the end-to-end value stream in the business. How do you know whether all the improvement efforts that you're putting in are paying off? Are your metrics, what do your overall metrics look like? If you think about time to market, is it actually going down? If you think about how much work you deliver, does this number actually go up? If you think about flow efficiency, are you being more productive? Are you handling the inefficiencies in your workflow? Does the flow efficiency actually go up as well? So we're looking into the entire business end to end and give that overview of what is happening right now. And the second purpose is, okay, let's assume that you have all of these teams that are responsible to moving all of these initiatives further. The second report that we're providing, it's the executive report, shows you for each of your teams what the trends look like. So I do want to emphasize on that, because one of the main challenges that I see when I work with people is that they either try to put some arbitrary number out there and they have their teams try to fit within that number, or they try to compare their teams together in order to figure out whether they're successful or not. The problem that comes with this approach is that it's simply unreliable. It's just not the proper way to do it, because each and every team, they have their contexts, they have their issues, they have their team members, they have their environment. It's just different. It's not relevant to compare them. The most relevant way to figure out whether your team is improving is to look backwards on their own performance, to look back the past month, past 3 months, past 6 months, and then see the trend and figure out whether that trend is improving or not. So if you see, let's say, that a certain team delivers within 30 days, how do you know if it is a good thing or a bad thing? Well, you look back what happened 6 months ago, and if it turned out that they delivered on average in less than 3 months, that's a huge thing, right? That's a great success. Yes, your target might be 14 days or less, and you might not be there yet, but that's the difference between being in the gap and being in the gain, right? In the gap, you will say, what is it that we're still doing wrong? Why don't we actually get to that point? Whereas in the gain, you'll see, hey, we are actually 3 times faster than the past 6 months. And let me tell you, having that perspective makes or breaks your entire initiative. So that second report, the executive report, is going to give you an overview of the trends of each of your teams. And there are green and red indicators so that you can see at any one time which is the team that is struggling to meet their goals. Which are the teams, let's say, if we detect that there is more than 20% difference between the cycle time throughput, flow efficiency, or WIP age of a certain team, depending on what they've done the last month, last 3 months, or last 6 months, there will be a red zone there, a red section there. So with just one glance, you can understand which are the teams that are struggling so that you know where you need to put your focus on. You know from the entire value stream, and if the trends are starting to decline, you know where the actual problem comes from and which is the team that you really need to focus on. At the same time, when you see the green indicators, you can actually understand better, okay, whatever it is that we've done with that specific team, this is working. This is actually helping us move forward and move the needle in the business. So that's how you connect your work, the results of the team, and the business objectives that the organizations have.
I can so much relate to this. I see this so many times that you would measure the performance and like story points by just looking at one team and what they're delivering in a sprint and what they've committed to, but not seeing the whole picture, because that team is embedded in a larger context, in a what you call value chain, right? And on the other hand, it's not so much on really are they able to meet their goals they set themselves, but are they able to continuously improve, and are they better than last sprint or last cycle or last quarter, or however you want to measure it. But I see so many approaches that really focus on a team level efficiency and flow and not really take the whole system into consideration. So I think when we talk about agile transformations or becoming more agile, or just bottom line improving companies and organizations, it's really important to see the whole chain of value creation, also like the whole chain of command where decisions are made, because sometimes those are different paths, right? And identify the bottlenecks and improvements from there. So one of my clients, it was really interesting when they said, we're doing Scrum, we want to start with Scrum, and then we do retrospectives, and we do 2-week sprints. And then I asked them, okay, so how often do you deliver something to your clients? And they say, every 6 months. Okay, so becoming agile does not mean you set up meetings every 2 weeks and you're doing improvement experiments every 2 weeks. Becoming agile means you have to move from 6 months to 3 months. And we do a retrospective now, creating an experiment on how we could achieve this. And we're doing the next retrospective once we got an idea of that experiment and we run that project. And then we really try to get the cycle time down in order to get faster feedback and faster time to market. But that takes into account like a whole transition of the company, or at least of respective product side of that company, and not so much on a team level. So that's why I find it really interesting that when you're looking at data and you're looking at dashboards, you would also considering looking at the whole chain and not just at a single team level.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Of course, there are sometimes situations and cases where it's not really that straightforward to move away from these 6 months. Sometimes it's like certain contractual agreements that require it, or sometimes it's really like the cost that's associated with the delivery would be unreasonable if it's, or maybe the process is too heavy. And there are many reasons why people may have to stick with certain periods of time, 3 months and 6 months. However, if that's not the case, then absolutely, just start from there. Start improving the overall time that you need to deliver results to your customers, because we can keep optimizing internally what's going on within the teams and within the different business areas. But if the end user, the client, doesn't receive what they've asked for in a reasonable time, then what's the point, right? If you are not able to deliver and get feedback, then what's the point? So I always say, if that's the case, you should always start from there. And the reason why I'm not a fan of using metrics like story points, or to even go ahead and try estimate our tasks and our initiatives using hours as well, is because all of these are really like subjective. There is always intuition, judgment, good feeling involved. And if you have all of these as an input, then how would you expect to have a reliable output? And the other reason why I love so much metrics like flow metrics, like throughput and cycle time, lead time and flow efficiency, is that these are objective. This is what happened in the past. There is no guesswork involved here. This is what it is. So let's focus on the objective metrics in order to come up with an objective outcomes. And if we are not super delighted by what we are seeing in terms of numbers, then let's start thinking about how to optimize these numbers.
You can totally see some companies asking, but who do I hang if the project fails, if the estimation fails, right? If I ask for an estimation and I have a group of experts here, I can always approach them and go like, hey, you've estimated this. Now we're off the plan by 20%. If you use data, you go like, who's responsible for this? Whose head is going to roll now? But there's no one, at least no one for the estimation.
Yeah.
So I find that quite interesting.
That's the thing. When you have the data and you have the dashboards and the metrics, no one can argue with numbers. It's not just someone who literally like shot in the dark and came up with a delivery date. That's not how it works. So when you're forecasting, and that's why we are promoting the concept of probabilistic forecasting, you don't come up with a single certain delivery date that you have to meet. You come up with a range of outcomes, a range of delivery dates, and the probabilities that come with each of them. And now the one person who will be like accountable for the outcome has to decide how much risk they're willing to live with. The question is no longer when you will be done or when you will deliver the project. The question now is, how much risk are you willing to take?
Absolutely.
And now you have to evaluate what's the nature of the work, because the question that I always have is like, okay, this will only work for items of the same size. No, it won't. And here is why. You have to figure out what's the nature of the work, then based on that and based on the outcome that you're trying to achieve, you have to decide what level of risk are you willing to take. If the work is complex, if you've never done this before, if there are a lot of uncertainties, then go with a higher percentile. Or if you have like a campaign with a fixed delivery date or contract that comes with penalties if you miss the deadline, work with 95 percentile and 98 percentile. What this means is that from what has happened back then, there is only 2% chance that you fail. And then if the work is easy, this is nice. I love that. If it's easy, if the team has done this before, if you don't expect any obstacles along the way, then go with the 70th percentile, right? So, and the great thing about this approach is that you run this on a continuous basis every 2 weeks. You take what you've done in the past 2 weeks and then run the simulation again so that you figure out, okay, based on our initial commitment, are we still on track, or are we going off track, off schedule? And now you can make changes so that you go back on track. And the great thing is that even if at some point it turns out that your initial commitment is just impossible to meet, because let me tell you, things will change. Things will change. From the very beginning, when you start your project and you make your commitment, from then on, your team will change, your efficiency will change, probably the environment around the way you work will change. Very often, more tasks will come up. There will be tasks that will drop off. You'll probably split work. Probably there will be defects coming up. So there are so many things that will change. So you have to continuously rerun that simulation and reevaluate if that outcome is still reasonable. And if at some point it turns out that's not possible to meet it anymore, at least you communicate that early. At least you communicate it at a point where your stakeholders and your clients can make decisions to mitigate the risk of failure. And that's how you build credibility. That's how people don't get hung up in the end of the project, right?
Yeah.
By really working through this on a continuous manner.
I'm really curious to hear your take on something that, let's say we're starting a project right away. We have no historic data. How would you approach this? Because then you don't have like the numbers that you can rely on, right? You have to first get some little piece of information in order to extrapolate from it, right?
Yeah. If you don't get the data, then go ahead and collect the data. So I would never go ahead with any long-term commitments if I have no idea what has happened in the past. So the great thing about the approach that we use is that you only need 20 to 30 completed items to come up with a reliable commitment. So at the very beginning, when you're just getting started, just try to buy some time. Or if you have to commit, like, don't make it a long-term thing, because that's a risky move. I wouldn't take that risk. The most important thing when it comes to probabilistic forecasting is to make sure that you maintain the stability of your system.
Can you give us a brief explanation why you came up with this number, like 20 to 30 items? Where does it come from?
I think it was Troy McGinnis that has performed a research around this. I think there is a simulation and a few studies that he has published. I'm not 100% certain about that. I think it was Troy McGinnis that actually came up with that statement. And if you're looking for someone in the network who knows about probabilistic forecasting, Troy McGinnis is your person.
Oh,
so
yeah,
by all means, if you need like someone to really give you a number to follow up with, and he's the one. So now, when it comes to following up with this approach, in order to make sure that your forecast is reliable, you do want to maintain the stability of your system. What does this mean? This means that you have to put some policies and practices in place that will help you deliver consistently. So if there is, let's say, a big task that just entered the workflow, you do want to make sure that you either split it without compromising the concept of customer value. Or if that's not an option, really to have more people work on it so you actually allocate more capacity for that task in order to reduce the delivery time. If there are blockers, any bottlenecks, issues, external, internal dependencies, you cater them right away. You don't leave things stay and age in the process. Your goal really is to make sure what has been started is really going out of the process. And I have to tell you, this is pretty much the most interesting part of the whole thing, because the reliability of your forecasts, your cycle time, your lead time, your throughput, your flow efficiency, due date performance, all of these things are actually byproducts of how well you manage your work. It's a byproduct of how well your work in progress is moving through the system. And people tell me, they ask if I'm just getting started, what's the first most important thing that I have to focus on? And I'm always saying, if you don't do anything else, go ahead and start tracking your WIP page. Just that, your WIP page. If you pay attention to your work in progress and your average age of work in progress, everything else will fall into place afterwards. If you keep these two metrics consistent or reduce them, if you're trying to improve your time to market, everything else will improve without even you being intentional about it. So if you don't have data, start collecting the data and really focus on how to keep WIP and average age of WIP consistent or reducing them. And I have to tell you, implementing WIP limits and trying to really limit the amount of work the team is working on is a struggle. It's a huge thing for a lot of teams because it's kind of counterintuitive. People think that if they keep starting work, they will keep finishing work, but that's not always the case. The focus should be on finishing instead of starting. So just by making that little tweak, focusing on finishing rather than starting new work is going to make a huge difference in your results.
Absolutely. I can always remember that most of my clients were like, okay, so we have this stable system now. We have implemented work in progress limits. We're limiting our work. We're really focused. And then something happens. A new client shows up, a new opportunity opened up, a new prioritization, a new legal something that we need to focus on, and priorities and work in progress limits gets thrown off the board. So that's really like most of the time, it's not so much about like educating people about the mechanics of it, but really having the discipline to stick to those mechanics and stick to those principles, even if times get rough, right? Because most of the time companies try to focus on utilization. So they want to have people working and try to keep them busy, try to keep them productive. But in order to do that, you have to have a certain range that you could go with. You could either give them too much work when they start too many new things in parallel, and then need to shift away from one type of work to another type of work and have too much WIP, or you give them too little and they idle around. So you have to really find the sweet spot. And I see companies really struggle with that, because if you're on the sweet spot, you have slack time, right? And not too much, but you would have a little slack time because things delay and things take time. With that slack time, they would need to accept that people have like a little longer talk at the coffee machine, a little inefficient here, a little inefficiency there. And to see that as a leader or a CEO of the company and think of it as, this is the most efficient system that I'm having, is really hard, right? Because you're looking at it and you don't see them working, but in your mind you have to remember, okay, so we're focusing on flow, not utilization. We're focusing on flow, not utilization. I want to get things done. I don't want to keep things busy, right? So that's where I see so many struggling with work in progress limits and really keep them even if the times get rough.
Yeah, you're
I'm wondering,
absolutely right.
like, I have this other question in my mind that I'm always curious about. Would you differentiate like different types of organizations. Like if you have an IT department doing IT support, I can totally see this. Seems like a no-brainer case. If you think of, let's say, a startup or a product discovery department or a venture that has like a spin-off of a bigger corporation that really need to start from scratch and make product discovery, which is a mess, to be honest, because you're not following a strict process. You're doing this for half an hour, then you've learned something new, and you do another thing for, let's say, 2 days, and you've learned something new, you throw it away, and you start another technology or another market or something else. So do you see any way that people doing this type of work could benefit from looking at flow efficiency?
Well, the common thing between all the scenarios is that in all cases, we want to deliver faster, right? In all cases, the goal is to get the thing and put it out there. So when it comes to that, if we look backwards from it, it actually makes a lot of sense to limit work in progress, regardless of whether it's a startup or a mature company that's with a mature market. And the reason is that you still want to optimize for that time to market. Yes, when you're just getting started, it's a total mess. You really want to test a lot of things quickly. So the most important thing in that process, and I understand the urge of really like having a lot of things going on at the same time, but we have to understand that when we say yes to something and start working on it, we are saying no to the thing that we started yesterday. So there is this urge to keep starting, but if you're not delivering, if you're not testing it to the market, there is no point about it. And sometimes it's really painful because things may take time to go out there. And I understand where this is coming from. I've been there. I've been there as well, especially when I started my business. The most important thing I believe is that you keep your mindset into delivering results. And you're right, people feel super uncomfortable when they see that there are idle team members. You're like, I'm paying these people and they're just not working. But at the same time, when your mind goes to really cost reduction, you stop thinking about the expansion of your revenue. Very often, when you try to think about how to reduce the cost and how to optimize the utilization of your people, you are hindering at the same time your ability to deliver. Because let me tell you something. Delivering results is a team effort. It's not an individual effort. When someone is super efficient, but everything stops in the middle in the testing phase, then your entire team is actually failing. You are not delivering results. You need just one person to get stuck in the process to stop delivering results. So what we're doing in our company is when we have, because that's usually what we're seeing. Let's say if it is a development team and there are developers and QA people and probably some sort of approval or deployment before something being released, what we're seeing is that usually the developers are super quick, they're super fast, they're delivering quickly. But then in the QA phase, things got a bit slower. Usually they got a bit stuck. So what we're doing is we're always advising, take the people from the development phase and have them help in the QA phase, instead of them keep pulling more work in the process because you are stuck. There is a bottleneck in the middle that is not allowing you to move forward. When we talk about idle time, we don't really think about extended like lunch breaks or 4-hour chats or stuff like this. We have dedicated rules when someone is idle. So let's say that we have a WIP limit on the board and that WIP limit has been reached and there are a couple of people who are not really able to start more work. First, most important thing that these people have to do is look into the board and see, is there anything that they can help with? Again, the goal is to deliver. So as long as they deliver, they release a new slot and they can start new work. Is there anything that they can work on? Can they help with the testing? Can they help with shaping some sort of a documentation? Can they review? Can they perform a code review? Even if they haven't been involved in a certain implementation, moving slowly is still better than not moving at all. And also don't forget that you are having that knowledge sharing between the different people, which is also a huge thing. Now, there are so many things that I can go on with here. If you don't really have anything that they can help with, they can just look into, let's say, some knowledge resources or listen to podcasts like yours or look into some trainings, something that will help them build their own expertise. And that's at the same time will help them grow with the business as well.
Yeah, like enable them to pick up work where work gets stuck, right? So if you can, I think if you look at the system as a whole and you see it's stuck somewhere, you need to have like a wide range of skills in order to go there and do testing or do development work here or do product management work over there and just help. Like, not like own it, you don't become a new product manager just overnight by looking at the board, right? But just go there and pick up work and help. But that requires a very broad range of skills that you're going to have. So you really need to be like what we call like a T-shaped skill set profile. So you have your expertise, but you're also knowledgeable in other areas and you're able to pick up work from there. But most of the time, what I see in companies is when they transition to when they want to become more agile, they start with silos, and very, very strict profiles in which you're going to work. So if you're a tester, you're only doing testing, right? You're doing nothing else. So when your job is like that for, let's say, 5 or 7 years, I can see that it's really hard for you to venture out in the organization and help in other departments and enter this new field and really get knowledgeable in this new field to really benefit from your slack time when things get stuck. So I find that quite interesting, and I think that especially in product development or service development, when you do something new, when you're not maintaining something, but when you do something new, you have this whole chain within companies where I think we need more, I don't want to call it entrepreneurship, but this attitude of, okay, I can learn something new and I can go there and I can learn something new fast. And I know how to pick up work. So I'm like 2 days from now, I'm interviewing Joe Justice, who worked at Tesla, and he told me something really interesting, where he said that at Tesla, at least at Fremont when he worked there, he said that you could just approach any workplace and you would have a very precise description of what the work looks like and what needs to be done. You have like definitions of done, definitions of ready, really explicitly written down. And the workplace is designed in the way that you could just approach it and start working right away. Then that is true for what's going on your laptop, but that is also true for what's going on the production facility. So I think that if you create a system where it's easy to pick up new skills, where it's easy to pick up new types of work, that would really improve flow, because when you get stuck somewhere, you have like a system that supports people jumping into different skills and into different professions, so to say.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So having highly specialized team is a very hard situation to be, because essentially what's happening in terms of flow is that the priority of your work is now dependent on the availability of individuals rather than business impact. There are a lot of internal dependencies that will be created because of the specialties in the team. And I have to tell you, in most of the cases, it's not really that people have no idea how to do anything else. Very often it's just the mindset that people have. Very often it's like, I'm a developer, I do my stuff, I'm in my rabbit hole, QAs are responsible for testing, that's not my thing to do. So they kind of build these walls between each other, whereas instead of helping each other. So there is more of a competition instead of willingness to help with each other, which I believe is really disruptive, because people will be able to work as a team and deliver faster when they help each other and when they work together. As soon as there is this competition between them of who is the most performant person, as soon as you set up that environment, this is a recipe for failure right away, right from the get-go. So that's why I'm always like, very often, even the compensation system within businesses would be based on individuals' performance. So how would you expect people to help each other and put their individual metrics, make them look bad, if that's how you communicate that that's what you value in terms of metrics? That's not working. So people have to be able to really help with each other in order to achieve that optimization of the entire workflow. Because again, delivering results is not an individual effort, it's a collaborative effort. People have to work together to be able to deliver faster. So what we're doing internally at NAVE is that regardless of how quick certain individuals are, if the delivery fails, the entire team fails. It doesn't matter who has done what. They fail together. They succeed together and they fail together. So when you start emphasizing when you start to emphasize that you value your team as a whole, as a unit, that's when things start really clicking in their heads. And from then on, as soon as they have that switch in their mindset, this is the place and time where systems, playbooks, the policies come into play. As soon as you have a system, step by step, definition of done, what needs to happen here, what needs to happen there, this is like the environment that people need to start learning new skills. And this is crucial. I've seen this firsthand. If you don't really have the process, if you don't have the playbook, then things got really messy because people got confused, and the problems usually start from there. That's not necessarily a bad thing. If you know that this is your business, then this is just your next opportunity for improvement for sure. But usually what happens is, if you have the process, and usually you would have like a specialist, that specialist is going to validate the work. That's the person who would usually like set the goal, discuss the strategy, and validate the end result. So even a person who hasn't been involved in that process is plugged in to another process, then that's the best way to have them really learn faster and in a way that the outcome is still reliable.
I really like what you're saying. I was about to interrupt you a couple of times there, especially when you said that it's a question of mindset, because I wanted to say that mindset is a result of the system that you're creating once you set up the company, right? And that's just where you went into and described basically what I wanted to jump in. And I think that if you're stuck with it's an issue of mindset, it's pretty much a dead end on your responsibility. So if you accept that mindset is something that you create by setting up the system and boundaries within your company, then you see that you can change that. Not directly, not in a cause and effect relationship, but in an indirect relationship over time. So we have this saying here in Germany that if you set fences around people, they will become sheep because they're going to behave like sheep. So if you treat people like sheep, they're going to be sheep. And if you treat people like human beings, they are human beings with all the benefits that come with it. So I couldn't agree more with what you're just saying. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And sometimes it also starts with the values of the business. Often what happens is people are just not able to break these mindsets and these roadblocks, and they just leave. When I see that there is a business who really focuses on their values, and they say, for example, one of our values is continuous improvement and growth, when the people, especially in the teams, especially in development teams, they have used for so long, they've done the same thing, and they were like the person to go to for a certain expertise. Sometimes these people just leave. They just cannot adjust. And that's a perfectly normal thing. I've seen this happening. It's a normal thing. I've just seen that when the business really, like the overall management and the leadership, they sit down and they define explicitly their values, because the people who follow up with these values will stay. Those who don't, they will leave. And again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. This just means that you start shaping the culture in your organization, which is usually a huge step, especially for small businesses.
But you also have to live it, right? It's values are not just words that you put on walls. So I've had a couple of clients that ask me, so we want to do a value creation, like a value workshop where we want to like write down and explore our core values as a company. And for me, being an engineer, I'm always like, really? That's what you want? You want to design posters in a workshop? Ugh. I have to buy food, right? So I'm saying yes to those types of contracts, but I'm really hard pushing them into creating something of value. So what I'm trying with them is, so let's say if speed is one of your values, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to live up to that value? Is it quality? Is it certain types of markets that you're going to miss? No, we want those as well. Well, then if you're not going to sacrifice anything or prioritize anything below your value, maybe it's not really what you're evaluating at your company, right? Because if you're saying that speed is one of our core values or trust is one of our core values, you have to prioritize something underneath it. You have to make sacrifices on other parts of your product, your services, your quality, whatever it is, right? But if you're not willing to sacrifice anything, your values mean nothing in my terms. So if you have your value and you counter it with something that you're saying, well, we're willing to sacrifice this in order to get that because that is way more important, that's when things get really practical, because then you know, okay, so those type of features we can prioritize down because we want to ship earlier. But if you're just saying that like speed is our value, that's pretty much meaningless. So it really tries to shape the behavior of the company and the people working in the company and the teams and everything. You have to make it more practical, make it a little bit more handy.
And I think the systems that you build should inherit all of these values too. So you're giving a great example when it comes to prioritization. What we do internally and what we teach our customers to do is to build risk assessment frameworks. So they have to figure out which is the most important thing for them right now. You're saying, is it speed? Is it priority? Is it certain markets? Is it certain people, certain customers that you want to really please? What's the most important thing right now for your business? And then have all of the items on your backlog really classified based on these criteria. And when you decide what's the next thing you have to work on, just filter out based on those priorities and choose the next top whatever items that go in, right? That's a great approach to really decide what to do now, what to leave for later, and what to discard altogether. And the great thing is that as things change, and let's say certain customers are not important anymore and a certain new market is the next priority for the business, then just start filtering by another value, right? That's how you actually shape what you start with the outcomes that you like to achieve, with the actual delivery of the work, the actual prioritization and movement of the work through the workflow. So it is very indeed important to figure out what your values are, but they shouldn't be just words or post-its on the wall. They should be meaningful, and they should be meaningful for everyone in the organization.
I don't know about you, but I could go on for this for hours because I've seen so many fail stories about like writing down values and trying to shape up the organization in order to meet their goals. But I'm looking at the clock and we're almost at a full hour. And this is what I thought about the length of the podcast would be. So coming to an end, I'm really curious if people want to learn more about you and your work, more about NAVE, where can they find you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Sonja from NAVE. Go ahead, send me a note. I would love to hear what are the main takeaways from this conversation. I would love to meet each and everyone who is actually listening to this and really continue the discussion. And if you'd like to learn more about our product and our services, it's getNave.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And for everyone now opening up Google, just click down below on the show notes and we'll provide you any links so you can get in touch with Sonja, get more information about how to get NAVE. And thank you so much for listening and meet you in the next episode. Thanks. Thanks, Sonja, to you as well. I hope you're coming back one time and we can do a second recording. I'm really looking forward for this. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for listening to our 4th episode of the Stellar Work Podcast. If you want to continue the conversation or get more insights on the topics we covered, make sure to check out the show notes below. If you liked the episode, make sure to subscribe and tell others about it. That would really help the channel grow. I also want to thank Sonja for joining in. I really enjoyed this one. All right, bye-bye.
Hey Sonja, welcome to the mic. On Stellar Work, let's take a deep dive. Kanban analytics, you'll claim to fame. Helping teams that find their game. Sonja's here to break it down. Data flows and insights found. On Stellar Work, we'll see it through. With Sonja's wisdom, fresh and new. NAVE's a tool, the ultimate suite. Kanban boards make your workflows neat. From bottlenecks to process streams, optimizing teams while there's dreams. Sonja's here to break it down. Data flows and insights found. Stellar Work, we'll see it through. With Sonja's wisdom, fresh and new. NAVE's a tool, the ultimate suite. Kanban boards making workflows neat. From bottlenecks to process streams, optimizing teams while there's dreams. Sonja's here to break it down. Data flows and insights found. On Stellar Work, we'll see it through. With Sonja's wisdom, fresh and new. Customer-centric, solving pain. Feedback loops, breaking change. Data-driven, the way to go. In every process, the numbers show. Executive dashboards, trends in sight, aligning teams, getting it right. Probabilistic forecast, risk in view. Sonja's path is tried and true. Sonja's here to break it down. Data flows and insights found. On Stellar Work, we'll see it through. With Sonja's wisdom, fresh and new. From strategy to team success, optimizing flow, nothing less. On Stellar Work, we got the key. Sonja's insights, we're breaking free. From strategy to team success, optimizing flow, nothing less. On Stellar Work, we've got the key. With Sonja's insights, we're breaking free.